my existence as a polytheistic, Murti worshipping Hindu, practicing Hindu, is an anathema in the eyes of certain scriptures. I'll not name it. I don't want to suffer the consequences or let's say the realities of Nupur Sharma. So, assuming that I'm the object of hatred, regardless of who I am, even if I don't pose a threat, even if I don't come in the way of somebody else's existence, and I am being told this over and over again at least 3 times a day using public speaking systems. You please tell me, am I the one who is causing this particular otherization, or am I basically saying I am already othered, plus my existence has been dehumanized? History speaks volumes to this particular effect. The history of this particular subcontinent is the product of dehumanization of the other, and the other in this particular case being the native of this land, namely the Hindu. Am I not expected to at the very least be alive to these historical realities and speak for my own protection? If the answer is no, I am being told that I must effectively subject myself to surrender, which is something that I am not for. And therefore, I am asking for the revival of the martial spirit, but in the interest of self-defense, not in the interest of preemptive action or wanton violence against any community. That is my position.
One of the issues in your definition of Hindutva is the idea of peaceful versus pacifist Hinduism.
Yes.
Which is something that a lot of people have concerns about, because in a way it calls for a weaponization of the religion. And it also in a way otherizes Muslims in particular. Why do you think this is so important, that you have to have an understanding that the martial element of Hinduism was something that was taken away from it,
right,
and which we now need to revitalize or re-energize in Hinduism?
I am not asking for weaponization of Hinduism. I'm basically saying at least recognize the fact that your gods have weapons in their hands. Okay?
But they also have other things. That's not the only
So here's the thing. So I would say you may have a book and a weapon, and you may have a lotus and a weapon, in which case peace and power go hand in hand. Okay? My point is that a weak person who is emasculated has absolutely no bargaining chip to begin with and has no place at the negotiating table. So I think that's the fool's paradise to live in. And as much as I would want to believe as a constitutional, let's say as a practicing constitutional and commercial litigator, that the monopoly of violence or the monopoly of force must be exclusively with the government or the state, I've seen how it is wielded, and I've also seen how it is not conveniently. And I've also seen instances where entire swathes of population have been left to their own devices to protect themselves. The latest of instances being the anti-Hindu violence under the current dispensation of the West Bengal government in the aftermath of the elections in 2021. And as someone who argued before the Constitution Bench of the Calcutta High Court on this particular matter, specifically enumerating instances of mass gang rapes, I know for a fact that the outsourcing of the monopoly over violence to the state has not exactly helped. Therefore, I am not saying let's be unconstitutional. I am not asking for militarization. I am not asking for any of those aspects. I am simply saying, is self-defense part of the bundle of fundamental rights, the amorphous bundle of fundamental rights that the Constitution spells out? The Constitution expressly spells out a few fundamental rights, over and above which the Supreme Court has spelled out 21 further rights at the very least. Now, therefore, I'm asking myself this basic question: is the right to self-defense, not the right of wanton violence, not the right of preemptive action, the right of self-defense, is that something which is beyond the pale of reasonableness? In my humble and clear opinion, it is not. That is where I stand. Now, coming to the question of otherization. Well, as long as religions exist, one will always be the other to the other. Finish the concept of religion and then we'll say, oh, there is no such thing as being the other. Second,
but it doesn't necessarily imply hatred.
Of course not. But let us strike a very clear distinction between the recognition of the other and hatred for the other.
Yeah.
I'm clearly on that particular point. Now, I'll go a step further. If my existence as a polytheistic, Murti worshipping Hindu, practicing Hindu, is an anathema in the eyes of certain scriptures, I'll not name it. I don't want to suffer the consequences or let's say the realities of Nupur Sharma. So, assuming that I'm the object of hatred, regardless of who I am. Even if I don't pose a threat, even if I don't come in the way of somebody else's existence, and I am being told this over and over again at least 3 times a day using public speaking systems. You please tell me, am I the one who is causing this particular otherization? Or am I basically saying, I'm already othered, plus my existence has been dehumanized. History speaks volumes to this particular effect. The history of this particular subcontinent is the product of dehumanization of the other, and the other in this particular case being the native of this land, namely the Hindu. Am I not expected to at the very least be alive to these historical realities and speak for my own protection? If the answer is no, I am being told that I must effectively subject myself to surrender, which is something that I am not for. And therefore, I am asking for the revival of the martial spirit, but in the interest of self-defense, not in the interest of preemptive action or wanton violence against any community. That is my position.
But at a time when already you have so much of polarization in society, so much rage, so many avenues that are blocked for self-expression, that sometimes rage is the only way you can express yourself. Is that not somewhat dangerous?
Sure, but the burden should not be on the Hindu community alone.
Given that they are majority?
So, no, hold on. So
this
because
goes back to the victimhood.
That's exactly what I'm coming to.
Yeah.
The existence of the Hindu community in the majority does not mean that we have a greater responsibility to preserve peace. This is the false narrative, and particularly as a community which has suffered at the hands of invaders and colonizers, I'm sorry, the burden is no more on us. We have done away with 1/3 of our land by way of Pakistan and Bangladesh. What more is expected of this community? Never again would be the policy at this stage. And it goes back to a very different connotation altogether. So I'm making this very clear statement, and I'm happy to quote instances from the Constituent Assembly debates where they clearly said, while the majority will be cognizant of the rights of the minority so that they are treated at par with them when it comes to constitutional rights, this treatment and this particular extension of, let's say, of goodwill cannot be a one-way street. And it is up to the minority to also ensure that it conducts itself in a way that public morality is largely dictated by the majority in every jurisdiction, and it conforms to public morality. Remember, this conversation is happening in the aftermath of the vivisection of this country with millions of lives being lost. So today the burden still cannot be on us. I am certainly no representative for Hindus, I don't speak for them. I will certainly represent those Hindus who believe that Hindus have a right to say these things, who believe it is time it is said. So I certainly represent that particular cross-section of Hindus. So I am not saying that let us add to the problem. I'm sorry, I'm only saying the problem has existed for long. I am only saying at the very least, get your head out of the sand and acknowledge these realities and deal with those realities in whatever way possible, staying within the bounds of constitutionality and law.
So self-defense, can it become vigilantism?
So let's put it this way. So vigilance,
which would be a problem?
Okay, let's look at it this way. If I were to give you a butter knife, how do I know you're not going to use it to slash your own wrist or kill me? It can happen anyway. I am not going to delegitimize the existence of a butter knife because of the possibility of it being misused for some other purpose. Self-defense is clear. To any average person with a reasonable IQ who understands the concept of Atmaraksha, self-defense has a very clear connotation, which is when attacked, protect. That's it. It takes perhaps semantic jugglery and a great leap of imagination and the English language, of which I'm a very poor student, to equate self-defense with vigilantism. I don't see how that works.